Hello, silly gooses. This is like my favorite video of the year. I think it's probably a lot of people's like favorite video or looks forward to filming this video. It's the mid-year freakout tag. Since I know it's a video I love to make, I have seen several really fun iterations of it. It's been around for a long time. Gavin just posted his the other day and added a few questions to his mid-year freakout tag. Sid just posted her video and it was just like, just exactly what I wanted. Just a good old classic mid-year freakout tag. And also, Jesse the Reader posted like a refreshed, revamped mid-year freakout inspired video, the mid-year check-in tag, I think. And so what I did was I took what I liked from each of them and then rearranged them just for fun into an order that made the most sense to me. And now I have like 19 questions on my own customized mid-year freakout check-in book tag. Okay, so shout out to all three of those people that I just mentioned, and also the original creators of the mid-year freakout tag. So it's a mishmash from at least 5 different contributors. Okay, Jesse, Gavin, Sid, and Ellie and Chammy all have contributed to my cherry-picked, customized, free-range, organic, Frankenstein patchwork mid-year freakout check-in book tag.
Nice.
I will leave all the questions and everything time-stamped, since I know I also put them in like a weird order, which makes sense to my brain. But welcome. It's time. Let's just get into it. So I'm starting with, we're already starting weird. I'm starting with what I think is Jesse's very last question in his like updated tag, which is a book that you've read so far this year that you feel embodies the vibe of your reading year. Love this question. Felt like it would really just set the tone for my check-in mid-year freakout tag. Mid-year book, whatever. And I think the book that I'm gonna choose is Funny You Should Ask by Alyssa Sussman. This book, I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed this. I only read it a couple months ago and I have like thrust it into the hands of several other like reader friends, booktube friends, like real life personal friends. It was so much fun, but it also was really fresh and different. I felt like it was written in a way that I don't see very often, not quite mixed media, just kind of different storytelling elements throughout the book, dual timelines, really interesting, very human, flawed, personable characters. And I chose this as the one that embodies my reading year. It's very unapologetic in what it is, which is just kind of like a larger than life, this could never happen, super fun, silly Hollywood romance. And I loved it for that reason, because it's just like, here, take this book for what it is. Don't expect anything that it isn't. And that's how my reading year has gone so far. It's like, we are just taking it one book at a time. I've got so many projects that I have started and stopped this year, so many projects that have like stalled, so many books that I have started and stopped this year. So it's the lesson of my reading year is let it be fun, let it be silly, you know, maybe even a little bit cringe, you could say. And also, don't expect more out of it than it has to give. We're starting pretty deep. I wasn't expecting to start with like a life lesson for myself. But that's where I am in my reading year so far, is just let it be what it is and not to expect too much from myself. But also great book, you should read it. Number 2, the best book that you have read so far this year. I've only given out 7 5-stars this year. That's like 1 5-star a month almost. Funny You Should Ask was also a 5-star read. The best of those best, easily, is All My Rage by Sabatir. I can't believe that it took me as long as it did to read it. I wanted to read it when it came out and then I didn't get to it. It has since won a whole bunch of awards, including my local library's book of the year last year. And a couple months ago, she visited to give like a guest lecture and I had her sign my book. I talked about this in my book haul recently. No, I didn't. I talked about this in some video recently. Maybe it was my book haul. Anyways, Wes and I made a date night out of going to this lecture of hers where she speaks about All My Rage and the importance that it like has to her as a writer and like unpacks a lot of things in the book. And anyways, she signed my book for me. I very much fangirled. It was really special. And now also this is the best book of my year so far. And it will definitely still be up there at the end of the year. Like easily guaranteed, no questions. Young adult contemporary, which is not the only young adult contemporary on this list, which is also a surprise of my year. I a little bit thought that I wasn't really reaching for YA anymore, let alone like YA contemporary, but it turns out that is something that I do still dabble in, which is exciting. Like I'm happy about that. Also a book that I've recommended to a lot of people this year. A lot of people like in my personal life as well. Just such a good book. Okay, I'm already out of breath. We're 2 out of 19, so we gotta center and zen. Best sequel. Number 3, best sequel that you've read so far this year. And I've read a few sequels. I'm trying to really be better about the series that I read intentionally this year, but the best of the year so far, sequel-wise, is Morning Star by Pierce Brown. This is one of those books that's like, how did this come out of someone's brain? How did he dream this up? It's like dense in a good way. There's so many details. There's so many plot lines and like little threads that have spanned all 3 books because this is the 3rd and final in the series. There's so many little things that all like come to a head. They all get concluded. There's so much growth. There's so much action. There's so much plot. Like how did this come out of his brain? I don't know. It's a masterpiece and I cannot wait to read the companion series because the next book in that series, which I don't know if is the last book in that series or not. Anyways, we get a new Pierce Brown book this year. And that series I haven't started yet. I've only read the original Red Rising trilogy. And Wes and I read it together earlier this year. So much fun to buddy read. And also just like the process of reading this book, Pierce Brown, it just is the most breathtaking pacing. Like if Pierce Brown ever wrote like a proper thriller, I don't know if my little heart could handle it. Like the thrill and the twists and turns and the reveals and the whiplash throughout this book, absolutely wild. And I loved it. That's it. Next, this is another one that I patchworked into my updated midyear freakout tag. The best book recommendation that you've received this year. I think this one also came from Jesse's video. And I'm going with Pure Nessie by Susanna Clarke, which is not a recommendation this year, but I read this book this year. I have long wanted to read this. I know that Elias loves this book. I know that Sid loved this book. It won the Women's Prize a couple of years ago. So all of those are very strong recommendations in my book. No pun intended. And I finally actually read this cover to cover just a few weeks ago. I originally started this in like October of 2021. Read like 30 pages, accidentally DNF'd it. And then for a project that will come up later this year, I finally picked this up again and read it and absolutely loved it. This is just a specific, hard to categorize fantasy book that just is so unique in so many ways. And I don't know how to possibly explain this book. And I think that's a bit of the charm to it, is I was glad to not know much. It's pretty like isolated and solitary, and you learn more and more and more with the protagonist as the book goes on. It's very like,
what's that term from high school English?
First person limited. English teachers can correct me, but our like main character only knows so much about his world. Therefore, you as the reader only know so much about the world, and you learn with him. And it's a delight. It's a delight. I love this so much. Then we are taking a sharp pivot to the biggest disappointment of my reading year so far. And there were, let me tell you, there were several that I could have chosen for my biggest disappointment, but the biggest disappointment is Love in the Time of Serial Killers. I really would have loved to love this. The term that just came to mind was like genre fishing. Like, I just feel like it's trying to look like something that it very much is not, which the pitch of this book is like, she's studying to get her PhD in English, and her concentration in her PhD is true crime, and she just is like a proper true crime junkie, and so she's studying true crime, she's writing about true crime, she's watching and reading true crime, and then she like starts noticing some like questionable behaviors in one of her neighbors, and then it's like set up in a certain way that makes you think the book is gonna be one thing, and then nothing happens. So the disappointing thing is like, this is a large book for like what is clearly also supposed to be a contemporary romance. Like the heart, the pink, the love in the title, like it's supposed to be a romance. It's already pretty long for that. And then for what the gimmick that I thought we were promised just turned out to be a really big letdown. So I will be unhauling this eventually at some point. Biggest surprise, first of all, this is another young adult contemporary, but the surprising thing about it is the storytelling style that I've discovered I'm obsessed with, and I need to find more, but I think it is kind of a novelty that this team of writers does themselves. And this is Whiteout by Danielle Clayton, Tiffany D. Jackson, Nick Stone, Angie Thomas, Ashley Woodfolk, and Nicola Yoon. They also wrote Blackout, kind of the predecessor in the same vein as Whiteout. I'm obsessed with this like holographic snow globe cover, first of all. I read this on audiobook and then immediately had to go buy the physical book because it was that good. Another of my 5-star reads this year. Okay, so the surprising thing about this is, first of all, I read Blackout and loved it, but at the time it just was kind of like, oh yeah, that was a really cool way to tell a story. But this one, you get the sense that it's like co-written by 6 people, and they don't even tell you which author writes which stories or which characters in the book. There's like a riddle at the end that's kind of tongue-in-cheek. When we decided to write Whiteout, we wanted to challenge ourselves to tell a story that felt like a big, glorious puzzle, because so often the process of falling in love can feel like that. 2 people trying to figure out who they are, where they belong, and how they fit together. If you're curious about which author wrote which pieces of this big, snowy love story, look no further than the following key. And so then it gives you a clue or 2 about which author wrote which characters, but it's not like explicit, which I very much love that it's just like, hey, the 6 of us wrote this book. To write a book with 6 people, I mean, I've written a bunch of books written by like 2 people, like a duo, and that has like a unique feel and voice to it, but 6? Very cool. Very surprising at how like tangible that really is. Like you could tell that every story, every character has a unique contributing voice, and I loved it so much. I hope that this like really catches on and becomes more of a thing, but I also will happily gobble up anything and everything that this magical group wants to put out from their own like 6 dynamic brains. But yeah, I would love to see more like truly collaborative books like this, because it was so much fun and so unique and so surprising. YA contemporary over 24 hours during a big snowstorm in Atlanta, Georgia, and like you follow a bunch of different like Black teenagers in Atlanta as each of them navigate this blizzard and go through various romantic moments and scenes. And it is really just a joy. And I loved it so much. The audio is also great. Next is a book that made you cry, and I really easily could have picked All My Rage for this as well, but I was trying not to double up. So another book that made me cry, that I wasn't expecting to cry, is One Italian Summer by Rebecca Searle, or Surly. And I read this in LAX. I had like an 8-hour layover in LAX on my way to Italy earlier this year. And so I listened to the audiobook basically just in one sitting on my way to the exact place where this book takes place. And I straight up was crying in the airport, listening to a specific part of this book. It ended up being more emotional than I thought it would be. This has some elements of magical realism, and is about this young woman who loses her mother, and they had planned a mother-daughter trip to Italy together because it's a place that really meant a lot to her mother before she had her daughter. And then before they're able to go to Italy, her mother sadly passes away. And so then she goes on the trip alone, and the whole book happens, and it was really an emotional roller coaster, but very good. And I read it at the perfect time and just really set this like warm, fuzzy, ooey gooey tone headed into my vacation. Perfect. Number 8, a book that made you happy. There was actually several that I could have chosen for this prompt. I don't feel like last year I read very many happy books. I remember this being like oh my god, what do I pick for the happy one when I made my mid-year freakout tag last year? This year I had options, and of the options, I chose Back in a Spell by Lana Harper, and I just recently rewatched the video that I'll mention later where I talked in depth about this book, because I just wanted to feel those feelings again and how happy this book made me. I'm like, already I want to reread this. Like, I just read this in February and I already want to go back to it. I miss these characters. I miss this small town and the magic and the atmosphere so much. And this is the third in the Witches of Thistle Grove series. The first 2 books are Payback's a Witch and From Bad to Cursed. Then we have Back in a Spell, and the 4th and final book comes back in August, I think, and I will be so sad. I was really hoping that this would be just like a 20-book series, you know, but all good things must come to an end, I guess. It just makes me happy. Like, just talking about it right now is making me so happy. The 2 characters in this book in particular, like the 2 love interests, I felt out of the series so far have been the most fleshed out. They had the most depth to them. They had the best chemistry. They had the best growth. They felt like truly their own people, which now that I'm talking about it in the same video, it had some similar elements to Funny You Should Ask as far as like the chemistry and the relationship goes. So I guess that's just the perfect cocktail for me, but this book made me so happy. It's such a small, quick read, but it packs such a punch. And also similar to Funny You Should Ask, it is pretty out there. Like, I don't know, it's this big, like, small town, magical, witchy plot, and you just have to go with it. You just have to, like, let that be what it is, and suspend your disbelief, and be along for the fun, silly ride. I loved it, and I wish I saw more people reading further into the series, because this is so worth it. Number 9, the most beautiful book that you have acquired this year, and I ended up picking 2 because I find them kind of similar. They have this like similar maximalist symmetrical design, which is either a current trend in the industry or just a specific design that I like, or both, I guess. It could be both. So the first one is Lodor by Mary Shelley. Pink yeehaw maximalist symmetry on this cover with like just the text right in the middle. And the other similar one that I just got is Magic Has No Borders. Sorry, the glare is kind of dampening the vibe right now. Magic Has No Borders. This is a short story collection from a bunch of South Asian authors about like different fantasy tales set in South Asia or about South Asian mythology, and I am so thrilled. Saba Tahir has contributed a story to this, as well as many other authors that I adore. Again, I think this is also YA. It has this same like maximalist, centered, vaguely symmetrical vibe to it, and I just love it so much, and I can't wait to read it. So these two. These two are probably my most beautiful of the year so far. The next one is also from Jessie's list, which is a new release from this year that you've read, and give your thoughts on it, good or bad. So I chose my recent book club pick that we just discussed a couple weeks ago, which is YN by Esther Yee. What a trip. What a trip. I still have no idea what to think of this book or how to put it into words. I really was not expecting to rate it as highly as I did. I gave this a 4 stars. But it's so similarly to several of the other books I mentioned. Like, you just have to let it be what it is. It's weird. It's like unreliable. It's quick. It's kind of like art schooly. Like, it's very, every sentence has purpose. It's very intentional with its language. And the best review that I've seen so far is Swati on Instagram. Her handle is Book Snail Mail. I'll link her review because it just put into words so perfectly how I felt about this book. But basically, it's this woman who becomes obsessed to the point of delusion, obsessed with this K-pop band, specifically one member of the K-pop band, and like slowly spirals into just a complete separation from reality, and just like the lengths that she will go to like fulfill this like hunger and desperation that she has and desire with her idealized version of this K-pop star. And it's, if you like weird books, this has to be on your list. It is on my weird book shelf now, and it was just really unexpected. A strange one, but a good one, I thought. Okay, number 11, the most anticipated release for the second half of the year. There is also several that I could have chosen for this, but my top spot, I've decided, is Isle McElroy's new release, People Collide, I think. And their first book, their debut, was The Atmospherians, which I read, I think, like when it came out. And I never hear anyone talk about that book, and it's a shame. That book deserves so much more hype. It is culty satire, and I love that book. I thought it was so funny, it was so unique, and it was just so like dark satire. I just love like their Instagram presence, and I'm excited to see. It's been a couple years since The Atmospherians came out, and I'm really, really excited to see what they can do now in their second book. I don't know a thing about what it's about, People Collide. Doesn't matter. I have it pre-ordered, and I can't wait. I can't wait to be back in there writing again. Number 12 is a favorite new author, either a debut or new to you author. So this is a new to me author, and I have read her 2 recent novels now. It's Maggie O'Farrell, who I actually have both of her books somewhere. But I read both Hamnet and The Marriage Portrait last month, like almost back to back. And her writing style is so unique and almost like disorienting, where she does this thing with the timelines. So it's not like there's multiple timelines per se in both of these books I've read of hers, but she just so seamlessly will bounce back and forth between then and now, or like various flashbacks or backstories, and it's so hard to describe, but just the like detail and like sensory elements that she includes is so gorgeous. Just like the writing itself is beautiful, but she also, in both books, has this way of just like completely like lifting you out of the book, and it exists in its own little time frame. I feel like that sounded very like tinfoil hat of me, but that's the best I can explain it. Like, she does this very unique thing with like the timing. What's the better word for that? Not the timing. Order of events, I guess. Like the way that things happen, and the order that information is revealed, and that like history is included. You just have to read her, because now I'm obsessed, and now I also am dying to read her memoir. So that's on the list. Okay, the next one. What genre have you read the most from this year? And I use Storygraph these days. I'm not on Goodreads anymore, and Storygraph does this awesome thing where it just gives you like graphs and charts, all kinds of like reading stats, more than you could ever want. It's the best thing ever. And including a chart with your most read genres. So I took a look at that, filtered it by 2023, and to my great surprise, my top read genre of the year is contemporary, by like a large margin. It's like contemporary romance literary. Like, where is the fantasy sci-fi this year? I don't know. I don't know. Apparently, it's been a contemporary literary romance year so far, which is news to me. So it'll be interesting to see at the end of the year how that holds, or if I'm gonna go back on a fantasy sci-fi dive, because I would never have guessed that contemporary would be the top spot. So it's a weird year. This one I've also tweaked a little bit just for myself. 3 books that you hope to read before the end of the year. After I just said I haven't been reading fantasy this year, but I would like to continue these 3 fantasy series in particular, and they're all large, intimidating books, but these are 3 series that is important to me that I make headway on. So these are my 3 priority reads for the end of the year. 1, The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin, coming after the 5th season, which I think at this point, I need to reread the 5th season and then maybe like marathon the series tentatively. But if nothing else, if I just read The Obelisk Gate this year, I'll be content with myself. Then also, the next one, this is like so heavy, is A Storm of Swords, which is the 3rd in George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones series, Song of Ice and Fire. Currently reading Clash of Kings right now. Wes and I are taking our time buddy reading the Game of Thrones series. We were so optimistic. We're like, yeah, it's a 5-book series, 6 if you count, the Fire and Blood prequel book. So we could do 1 every 2 months. And we were really good with Game of Thrones. We started Clash of Kings, and then like 4 months went by, and I don't even think either of us are like a quarter of the way into Clash of Kings yet. So the plan is, would love to still finish the series this year. Okay, first of all. However, if we read Clash of Kings and Storm of Swords, that's more than halfway, and I'll be happy. 3rd is Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the 2nd in whatever this series is called. Maybe it's just the Foundry Side series. I don't know. The 1st book is Foundry Side. I love that book. That's one of my favorite fantasies. Has mixed reviews. I loved it. The 3rd book is already out. That was like an anticipated release last year of mine. So I'm dying to finish this series. And if I ever find a hardback of the 1st book, I will just absolutely lose my mind with excitement, because I don't think they make them anymore. But this was gifted to me, and I'm so grateful, and I will read it. I will read it this year, because I'm dying to get back into this world and these characters. So those are all of like the bookish questions, and then I've added some about like content creation and my channel, and most of these came from Gavin's video. So thanks, Gavin. I included some of those on mine also. One is, I think this was in the original tag actually, content creators that you've been loving recently. And I just took my brain on a pause and tried to list out like my comfort YouTubers, my comfort booktubers, you know? Like this is just like a general list where like I have notifications on, I watch almost everything they put out. It always brings a smile to my face. I just like really just enjoy everything that they do. It's like they could release like a go grocery shopping with me video, and I'd be like, I'm there. Let's go. Here's that list. Allie from Hardback Hoarder, obsessed with Cindy, everything she does. Jessica Nicole Dickerson, just like the energy is unmatched. Sid from Sid Bookworm, of course, like my Indiana bestie. Jan from Jan Agaton, spooky aesthetic queen. Sunny Kim, like the cool girl that I aspire to be. How to Train Your Gavin. The production quality, okay? Like the production value is unmatched. Pages of Haley, my cool smart ass writer friend. The Roomies Digest, my LA content silly queens. Stephanie Bookish, who's like I trust her fantasy opinions with my life. Leora Eileen, who is like cozy, witchy, vibey goals. Books and Lala, who just is like if I just need like a cozy hour-long video, that is where I go. And also, recent addition to my list is Bookshop Besties, which is Cleo and Carla, who are two like personal friends of mine that recently bought a bookstore together, and they have a TikTok also that kind of went viral, and now they also have a YouTube. Number 16, favorite video that you've made so far in 2023. Okay, so this is that oddly specific vlog that I did, which was like small town witches, cozy small town witches finding love or something. It was like a bunch of witchy, cozy romances. And I am so proud of that video. I went and meant to just watch like a chunk of it today, and I ended up watching most of the video. So if I am happy to rewatch an old hour-long video of mine, I feel like that pretty much speaks for itself. I am really proud of that project. I know it took me a while, but I really found my stride, I think, in a little bit more of my style themed vlogs, which I've been struggling with the last couple months. I don't know. I've just been like stopping and starting a lot of projects recently, and just rewatching that video today really made me realize, oh yeah, okay, no, I can do videos like this, and I can edit the way that I want to, and it's just, I'm proud of that video. That, you know, I don't need to over-explain. Okay, this is a funny question. A video that you thought would flop, but did well. I kind of have two for this. One is my unhaul video. I did not know that people were as excited about unhauls as they are, but I mostly made that video for me because I wanted to do a big audit of like my unread books and whether I wanted to keep them around. So I did like a TBR cart unhaul challenge with myself. Apparently we like unhauls, so that was a noted lesson. And then also, this was one I posted last year in December, was my like bookshelf reorganization that I did not think, it was like a random Vlogmas video, and then that ended up doing pretty well also. So great. I'm happy that you like both of those. 18, an upcoming video or videos that you're excited to make. And I am excited to finish several of the projects that I have just been plateaued over the last few weeks. I really have struggled in my ability to finish things YouTube-wise the last few months, which is why the content has been rather sparse. Okay, I know. So I'm excited to finally finish and put out the things I've been working on, which one is a big Women's Prize for Fiction project that's taken me months. One will be the first in like a video essay style for myself, which is going to be broadly about like the girl bossification of the romance genre, and does the color pink play into it, and you'll just have to watch the video essay. And then also I'm excited to finally actually sit down and edit my Italy vlog, which is like really wild that was like a month and a half ago now, and I haven't even touched that footage yet because there's so much of it, and I kind of want to put a little spin on it. So I know that's going to be a beast, but I'm really excited to see what we can make of it. And then the very last one for my long ass midyear freakout tag this year is any channel goals before the end of the year. And honestly, it's kind of what I just said. Like, I just want to get my consistency back. I would love to be able to reliably post at least weekly. I would love to get my like live show schedule like back and up and released in advance. Like, I just have felt very almost like rushed. It's like deadlines that I put on myself. Like, no one is pressuring me except for myself, but I would like to be back in just like normal go mode. You know, I don't want to feel like I'm behind on my own deadlines, or I'm asking too much of myself, or I'm biting off more than I can chew. Like, I just want to be consistent and content with my channel. But at the same time, now that I just said all that, at the same time, there are some like style tweaks that I want to make that I just have imposter syndrome about, but I would like to do like what I just said, like more video essay style projects that will take me a lot more time individually, so it will be more quality than quantity, I guess. So you might get less content during the month, but hopefully it will be more aligned to where I want my channel to go. So we're manifesting that. That is the end of this year's mid-year freak out book tag. Always a fun time. Always a fun time. I hope you had fun. If you made it to the end of this video, leave me the pink heart emoji for all of the pink books that I've read this year so far. And if you would like to support me or support my channel or hang out with me elsewhere, I have a whole bunch of fun links in the description, including my newsletter on Substack. It's called The Sillyverse, my Instagram at Noelle7pages, my Ko-fi page where you can also commission me for tarot readings, and a whole bunch of other fun stuff. Oh, also I'll leave a link to all the books that I mentioned to my bookshop.org profile, where if you wanted to shop any of these books, you could do so through that link, and it helps me out a little bit. And that's it for me. And I promise, I will see you very soon. Give your dog a big ol' squeeze for me, and I will see you very soon. Bye.